past 36 hours, the United States and its partners have launched Operation Epic Fury.
It's 2:47 in the morning. Most of America is asleep. And somewhere over the Persian Gulf, a missile is already in the air. February 28th, 2026. The United States of America, the country that elected a president who promised no more forever wars, has just started a new one. No vote in Congress, no declaration of war, no primetime address from the Oval Office. Just a Truth Social post. And here's the thing that nobody is talking about clearly enough. 4 weeks later, nobody in the United States government can tell you what winning this war actually looks like. Not the Secretary of Defense, not the Director of National Intelligence, not even the President himself. Now, before you click away thinking this is another political hit piece, I need you to stay with me. Because what I'm about to show you isn't left or right. It's a question that the people who support this war are asking. It's a question that some of Trump's closest allies are publicly panicking about. And it's a question that affects every single person watching this video, whether you care about politics or not. Because when this war started, the world's most important shipping lane shut down, and the price of everything you buy is about to change because of it. So let's start from the beginning. And let's be brutally honest about where this is going. There's a strip of water in the Middle East that is, depending on who you ask, either the most important 21 miles of ocean on the planet, or the most dangerous. It's called the Strait of Hormuz. And I want you to picture it like this. Imagine there's one road, one single road, that carries 20% of all the oil in the entire world. Every single day, before February 28th, roughly 130 oil tankers would pass through that road, from the oil fields of Saudi Arabia, from Kuwait, from Iraq, from the UAE, out through that narrow gap in the ocean, into the global market, and eventually into your fuel tank, into the cargo ships that carry your Amazon packages, into the planes that fly your holidays. One road, 20% of the world's oil. Now, that road is closed. Since the war started, shipping through the Strait of Hormuz has dropped from 130 tankers a day to 6. The International Energy Agency has called this the biggest oil supply shock in recorded history. Brent crude, the global benchmark for oil prices, has gone from around $72 a barrel to $108 and climbing. That's a 50% increase in 4 weeks. And here's what that means in plain English. It means the Philippines, a country of 115 million people, has declared a national energy emergency. They have 40 days of petroleum left. It means Oman Air has canceled all European flights. It means the OECD, the organization that tracks the global economy, has already cut its global growth forecast and raised inflation predictions for every major economy. It means the S&P 500 dropped 1.74% on a single day in March, the worst single-day drop of 2026. It means your grocery bill is going up. Your fuel is going up. The price of everything that gets transported, which is everything, is going up. And here's the part that should make you genuinely uncomfortable. This isn't even the worst-case scenario. What happens if this goes on for 3 more months? What happens if it escalates further? What does the endgame actually look like? Nobody knows. And I mean that literally, not as a talking point, not as criticism. I mean, the people running this war have not publicly stated what the finish line is. And that is the story. Let's go back to the beginning. Because to understand where this is going, you need to understand how we got here. If you watched the 2024 presidential campaign, you heard one promise more than almost any other from Donald Trump. No more forever wars. I'm the only one who can end these conflicts without getting us into new ones. We are not going to be the policemen of the world. These weren't minor talking points. This was core to his brand. This was a direct attack on the Bush-era Republicans. This was what separated him from the neoconservative wing of the party. So how did the man who ran on ending forever wars become the man who started a new one in the Middle East with no congressional vote, no clear goal, and no exit strategy? Let me walk you through exactly how this happened. The public justification for the war shifted several times, even before the first missile launched. First it was, Iran was planning an imminent attack on U.S. assets in the region. Then it was, Iran's nuclear program had crossed a red line. Then it was, Iran's support for proxy groups had become intolerable. Here's what's remarkable about that. Members of Congress, including Republicans, who attended classified Pentagon briefings on the justification for the war, came out of those briefings and told journalists privately that there was no specific intelligence showing Iran was planning an imminent attack on the United States. Congressional staff described the briefings as, I'm quoting here, lackluster and evasive. Representative Nancy Mace said after her classified briefing, "I will not support troops on the ground in Iran, even more so after this briefing." So the intelligence was, at best, ambiguous. And yet, on February 28th, Operation Epic Fury began. U.S. and Israeli forces struck targets across Iran, missile facilities, military infrastructure, command centers. Iran responded within hours by announcing the effective closure of the Strait of Hormuz. And within 48 hours, the world economy started to feel it. Now, here's where I need to be clear about something, because I want this to be fair. Some of what's happened militarily has been described by U.S. officials as successful. Iranian air defenses have been significantly degraded. Several missile stockpiles were destroyed. The argument from the White House is that Iran's ability to threaten the region has been meaningfully reduced. That may all be true. But even if it is, there's a question that nobody is answering. Then what? What is the United States trying to achieve that requires closing the world's most important oil lane for weeks? What does the finish line look like? And, critically, who decides when you've crossed it? On March 12th, a reporter asked Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth a simple question. What does winning look like in Iran? His answer? That's up to the president, whether it's the beginning, the middle, or the end. The Secretary of Defense, the man running the war, said the definition of winning is entirely up to one person, and that one person has not told him what it is. When the White House press secretary was asked the same question, she said Trump, quote, alone would determine when Iran had reached unconditional surrender. Unconditional surrender. That's a phrase from World War II. That's what you say to an enemy after you've broken their military, occupied their country, and held their government hostage. Is the United States prepared to occupy Iran? Iran, a country of 90 million people, 3 times the size of Iraq, 4 times the population of Afghanistan. Because if unconditional surrender is the goal, that's what you're talking about. And if it's not the goal, then what is? Let me ask you something. When you think about who's opposing this war, who do you picture? Democrats? CNN anchors? Anti-war protesters? Try Tucker Carlson, try Megyn Kelly, try Newt Gingrich, try Rand Paul. These are not left-wing critics. These are people who are either in Trump's inner circle or who built the modern conservative movement. And right now, they are raising serious, pointed, public questions about this war. Tucker Carlson, who has more influence with the Trump base than arguably any media figure alive, has said openly that this war contradicts everything Trump campaigned on. There's Newt Gingrich, former Speaker of the House, one of the architects of modern conservatism, a Trump loyalist. On Fox Business, he said something that should stop you cold. If they cannot keep the Strait of Hormuz open, this war will be an American defeat. An American defeat, not from a critic, not from a Democrat, from one of Trump's own. Now I need you to think about what that means, because Newt Gingrich just identified the trap. If the U.S. strikes Iran hard enough to reopen the strait, it risks a catastrophic regional escalation. But if it can't reopen the strait, it just handed Iran a strategic victory. The question is there a third option? And is anyone in Washington actually working on it? The answer, surprisingly, might be yes. But it's happening in a place nobody expected, and it involves a country that most Americans couldn't find on a map, that is quietly becoming the most important diplomat in this entire conflict. Pakistan, a country of 240 million people sitting directly on Iran's eastern border with relationships in both Washington and Tehran that no other country currently has. According to multiple reports from international journalists covering the region, Pakistan is quietly hosting back-channel diplomatic conversations between the United States and Iran. These are not official peace talks. They have no name, there's no photo op, there's no handshake in front of cameras. But they're happening, and this matters because Secretary of State Marco Rubio publicly admitted something extraordinary in late March. He said it remains unclear, quote, who will even speak for the Iranians in any negotiations. Read that again. The U.S. Secretary of State doesn't know who to call on the Iranian side, which tells you how fractured and chaotic the diplomatic picture is, and it tells you why a back channel through Pakistan might be the only live wire the United States has right now. But there's another hidden player in this conflict that almost nobody in Western media is talking about clearly. Russia. The head of the UK's armed forces, Admiral Tony Radakin, stated publicly that British intelligence had identified what he called the hidden hand of Putin behind Iran's war strategy. Specifically, UK intelligence believes Russia provided Iran with training and intelligence before the war began. Think about what that means. While Trump was negotiating a ceasefire in Ukraine, while he was trying to build a diplomatic relationship with Moscow, Russia was apparently helping Tehran prepare for a war against the United States. And this creates a problem that nobody in Washington is openly addressing. Because if Russia is a silent backer of Iran's strategy, and if Iran's strategy is to drain U.S. credibility and economic stability through a prolonged strait closure, then this isn't just a U.S.-Iran conflict. This is a proxy war, just with the sides flipped from what we're used to. And that brings us to the question that has been sitting underneath this entire video. The question I promised you at the start. What are the realistic ways this actually ends? Because there are really only three scenarios. One of them is probably fine. One of them changes the Middle East forever. And one of them, the one I think is most likely, is something almost nobody is prepared for. Let's be honest, let's be precise, and let's actually say what we think. Because that's the only reason you should be watching a channel like this instead of just reading a news headline. Scenario A, a last-minute deal. Scenario B, full escalation. Scenario C, long attrition. At 6:32 p.m. Eastern Time on April 6th, 90 minutes before Trump's self-imposed deadline to destroy Iran's power grid, Trump blinked. A last-minute deal, both sides claiming victory. But here's what nobody is telling you about this ceasefire. Iran never fully opened the strait, never cut a formal deal, never agreed to unconditional surrender, and Trump continued the ceasefire anyway. So the man who said he would rain hell on Iran extended his deadline 3 times, accepted a Pakistani intervention, and agreed to a ceasefire without getting the one thing he publicly demanded: the strait open, free, and clear. That is not a victory. That is Scenario C wearing a Scenario A mask. So where does this stand today, June 1st, 2026, 3 months after this war began with a Truth Social post? The ceasefire is technically still active. Technically, because both sides have violated it. Iran struck targets in the UAE on May 4th. U.S. and Iranian forces traded fire on May 7th as American vessels transited the strait. The strait is partially open, not fully, partially. 13 American soldiers are dead. Nearly 2,000 Iranians are dead. And the one question I asked at the start of this video, what does winning look like, is still completely unanswered. 3 months, no endgame, subscribe and hit the notification bell, because this story is not over, and when it ends, you will hear it here first. Night Briefing, the full story, every time.